The thing about scaffolding is the noise. You think a building site is loud because of the drills and the cement mixer and the men, but the loudest thing on a 6-story job is the scaffold itself. Every plank moving a 1/4 inch under someone's foot 2 floors up. Every metal pipe transmitting that movement down its length to the pipe you're touching. Every clip and tie creaking when the wind comes off the lake at Barra and hits the south face of the building. By 7 in the morning, the scaffold sounds like a kitchen full of cutlery all the time, and you stop hearing it the way fish stop hearing water. That's the first thing I want you to understand. The site is always talking. You stop listening. I was the first one through the gate that Tuesday. Not by much. Anura was right behind me, on his motorbike. Nen and I could hear him coming down Gala Road before I saw him. But I was first. I'd cycled from my room in Wellawat, 20 minutes, and I was sweating before I'd even started. The watchman, Jayantha, lifted the chain for me without looking up from his phone. The site office was still locked. The big roller shutter on the materials yard was still down. The sun was already high enough that the heat was building off the concrete pad in front of the building, and I could smell yesterday's diesel from the generator and the wet rope smell of the sacking that the cement bags get wrapped in when it rains overnight. I'm Dilshan. I'm 26. I'm a laborer. I've been on this job 3 months. The building is a 6-story conversion. Used to be an office, going to be apartments. The developer is from Dubai. The foreman is a man called Mr. Pereira, who is from Gale, and shouts in 3 languages, depending on who he's angry with. I came up to Colombo from Matara 2 years ago because my mother's brother knew someone who could get me on a site. Before that, I was helping my father repair fishing boats, which is also dangerous work. But at least the thing that kills you in Matara is the sea, and the sea is honest. The sea doesn't write things down. I'm telling you this so you understand who I am when I picked up the clipboard, because afterwards, a lot of people are going to ask why I didn't just throw it away. It was 7:20. The safety briefing was at past. I had 10 minutes. I went round the back of the building to the lower yard to find the half-tin of grease for my own boots, because the left one had split along the welt the day before, and I'd wedged a strip of inner tube into it to keep the water out, and I wanted to put grease on the tube so it would slide and not chafe. The grease tin was meant to live on a shelf in the lower yard next to the sacks of cement, but it didn't, because nothing on a site lives where it's meant to. I was reaching behind the second pallet of cement bags, feeling along the bottom of the shelf, when my hand hit a clipboard. It was wedged in, vertical, between the back of the pallet and the breeze block wall, the kind of place a clipboard ends up when somebody is doing a stock count and puts it down for a second and then forgets. I pulled it out. It was damp on the back from the wall. The metal clip rusted at one corner. The cardboard was warped. There was one sheet of paper on it. I want to describe what I saw exactly, because the next person I tell this to is going to ask. It was the site letterhead, real letterhead. The Pereira Constructions logo in green at the top, the Dubai company's logo next to it in gray, the address along the bottom, the registration number, the safety officer's name and contact in small print at the side. I knew the letterhead because we get the wage slips on it. It was photocopied, slightly grainy the way photocopies are. But it was the real form, the incident report form, the one I'd seen Mr. Pereira fill out once when a Bengali boy called Ratan dropped a hammer on his own foot from a ladder. The form was filled in, typed, not handwritten. The boxes at the top, date, time, location, supervisor on duty, incident category, were typed. The narrative section, 3/4 of the page, was typed. There was a signature at the bottom in blue pen. The date at the top of the form was Wednesday. It was Tuesday. I looked at the date for about, 4 seconds. I checked my watch. The watch is a digital Casio I've had since I was 19. The watch said Tuesday. The date on the watch and the date on the form did not agree. I thought, somebody has filled this in wrong. Mr. Pereira is bad with dates. He's done this before. Once he dated a delivery note 3 weeks ahead because he'd been looking at the wrong row on his desk calendar. I thought, this is a draft. Somebody started filling in the form for an incident that hasn't happened yet. Somebody got the date column wrong. There are 9 explanations for an incident report with tomorrow's date on it. Before you get to any explanation, that's strange. I read the narrative section. I'm going to tell you what it said as exactly as I can remember it, because I have read it many times since, and I think the words are accurate. It said, at approximately 11:47 hours, worker Ravindra Kumar, ID 4421, fell from the north scaffold platform at 4th floor level. The worker was performing tie-off adjustments on the platform's south rail. The platform's outer plank was not secured. The worker stepped backward onto the unsecured plank. The worker fell approximately 12 meters to the concrete loading pad. Death was confirmed at the scene by site medic. It said, the fall was witnessed by worker D. Senanayake, ID 4408, who was standing on the 3rd floor platform at the time and was the first to reach the deceased. Worker Senanayake telephoned the site supervisor at 11:47 hours from his personal mobile. D. Senanayake is me. ID 4408 is me. I looked at the form. I looked at my safety helmet on the gravel by my feet. The helmet has the number stenciled on the brim in white paint, and the number agreed. There was one more line in the narrative. It said, witness Senanayake was wearing damaged footwear at the time of the incident. Left boot, sole separation. This is noted for the record, but did not contribute to the incident. I stood in the lower yard, holding the clipboard, with the smell of yesterday's diesel in my nose and the noise of Anura starting his motorbike on the other side of the building, and I looked at the strip of inner tube wedged into the welt of my left boot. Ravindra Kumar I want to be careful with tenses, is a Bengali tie-off man who came onto our site 5 weeks ago. He's about my age. He has a wife in Dhaka, and he sends her money every Thursday from the Western Union on Gale Road. I know this because we've shared lunch 4 or 5 times. He doesn't speak much Sinhala. He speaks Bengali and broken English, and his English is better than mine in some ways because his vocabulary is bigger. Mine is more fluent. We get on. He laughs at my Sinhala jokes when somebody translates them. He is on this site this Tuesday morning. He is, I assumed, somewhere in the building right now, on the 4th floor platform, getting his straps ready for the day, because that's where tie-off men start their day. 11:47 was 4 hours away. I want to tell you what I felt. And what I felt was not what I expected. I expected to feel afraid. What I felt instead was annoyed. I felt the way you feel when a stranger interrupts you. No, I thought. I don't have time for this. I had a boot to grease and a safety briefing in 8 minutes, and a long day of carrying bags of finishing cement up 4 flights of internal scaffold stairs, and a typed sheet of paper with the wrong date on it was not going to be my problem for the morning. I want to say that to you very clearly. My first response to finding this document was to want to put it down and walk away. I didn't. I want credit for that too. I didn't put it down. I tucked the clipboard under my arm, and I took it into the lower yard strip of shade, and I read the whole thing again standing up. And the second reading is when the cold thing started in the back of my neck. The first reading, I'd been looking for explanations. The second reading, I read it as what it claimed to be. A man I knew was going to be dead by lunchtime, and a sheet of paper knew about it. I want to be careful here, because what I did next was stupid, and I want to be honest about why I did it. I went to find Ravindra. I didn't go and find Mr. Pereira. I didn't go to the site office. I didn't go to the safety officer. I went to find Ravindra, because Ravindra was the person who was going to die, and the way you stop a person from dying is you talk to the person. That was the logic. It was a roofer's logic, not a manager's logic. I had not yet thought about the fact that finding Ravindra was also in the script, that walking into the building was the first thing the document needed me to do. I walked round to the front of the building. The site was filling up. Men in green high-vis were going through the gate. Anura was parking his bike. The little T-cart that comes round the corner from Bambalapitiya every morning was setting up on the pavement outside the gate, and the woman who runs it, Mrs. Fonseca, I don't know her first name, was pouring the first round into glasses. I could smell the tea. I could smell the cardamom in it. I want you to know how ordinary the morning was. I want you to know that the thing I was holding under my arm was the only wrong thing in any direction. The safety briefing started at past. I was 3 minutes late. Mr. Pereira saw me come in and clicked his tongue and gestured at the line, and I joined the back of it, and we all stood in the small cleared space in front of the site office, and Mr. Pereira read out the day's tasks. North face plastering, 4th floor tie-offs, lift shaft inspection, delivery of finishing cement at 10, unload to the lower yard, lunch at 12, back on tools at 12:45. No one, he said, in Sinhala, no one without harness on the scaffold above 3 floors. He said it the way he says it every morning. The men nodded the way they nod every morning. The clipboard under my arm was hot from my body, and I could feel the corner of the metal clip through my shirt. I scanned the line for Ravindra. He was at the far end, in his red helmet, talking to the other Bengali tie-off man, a quieter one called Imran. He saw me looking and gave me the small upward nod that men on a building site give each other. I looked away. Briefing ended. The men dispersed. I waited until Ravindra had walked round the side of the building toward the scaffold base, and I followed him. He was at the foot of the north scaffold, putting on his harness. The harness goes on like a pair of shorts you step into, with the buckles up the front and the shoulder straps that clip in last. He was doing it without looking, the way you do anything you've done 1,000 times. He had his back to me. Ravindra, I said. Hey. He turned. He gave me the smile he gives everybody before lunch, which is the polite one, before he's tired and his real face comes out. I said in English because his English is the only language we both have. Don't go up today. He stopped buckling the harness. He looked at me. He waited. I said, there's something wrong with the 4th floor platform, the outer plank, south rail. He kept looking at me. He was waiting for the part of the sentence where I would explain how I knew. I didn't have that part of the sentence. I said, just don't go up. Tell Mr. Pereira you're sick. Take the day. He smiled a different smile, a tired one, the lunchtime smile. He said in his slow, careful English, I checked the platform. Yesterday evening, Imran and me, we checked. He said, the plank is fine. I said, check it again. He said, I will check it again? Yes. Of course. He said it the way you say it to a man who has woken up worried about something he dreamed. I said, Ravindra, please. He nodded. He went back to his harness. He clipped the chest strap. He picked up his helmet, which had been on the gravel by his foot, and he put it on, and he gave me the same small upward nod from the briefing, and he started up the scaffold stairs. I want to tell you something. The stairs on a scaffold are not stairs. They are a series of small platforms with ladders between them, and you go up the ladders one at a time, and at each platform, You put your hands on the next rung, and you go up again. Ravindra went up. I stood at the bottom, and I watched him until he was at the second-floor platform, and then he turned to the corner of the scaffold, and I couldn't see him anymore, and the scaffold went on talking to itself the way it does, and the diesel generator started up in the lower yard, and a man on the third floor began drilling. I want to stop the story here for a second. I want to tell you what I was thinking. I was thinking he didn't believe me. I was thinking he's going to check the plank. The plank is going to be fine. He's going to keep working. The document is going to be right. I was thinking I should have shown him the document. I was thinking if I had shown him the document, he would have thought I was insane. I was thinking a Sri Lankan laborer telling a Bengali tie-off man not to climb the scaffold because of a piece of paper sounds, in any language, like the start of a story that ends with the Sri Lankan laborer being sent home. I was thinking also, and this is the part I'm least proud of, about the line in the document that mentioned my left boot, the line that said the damaged footwear was noted but did not contribute to the incident. The document had me there, on the third floor, witnessing it. The document had my boot. The document had the moment I was going to call Mr. Pereira to the minute. That meant the document also had the 4 hours between now and 11:47. Whatever I did in those 4 hours was already in it. I went up the scaffold. Not to the third floor, to the fourth. I went to the fourth floor north platform because that was where the plank was, and I was going to find the plank, and I was going to do something to it that would put it out of use. I was going to break the plank. I was going to throw it off the scaffold. I was going to fetch a new one from the materials yard and bolt it on myself. I was going to do something, anything. That meant the south rail of the fourth floor platform was not in the configuration the document said it was in. I climbed. The metal of the ladder rungs was already warm. The smell of the scaffold higher up changes. At ground level, it's diesel and concrete. On the second floor, it's plaster and wet sand. On the third floor, it's the men's cigarettes and tar from the roof of the building next door. And on the fourth floor, it's hot metal and the sea. Because at the fourth floor, you start to feel the wind off the lake, and the lake is brackish. I came up onto the fourth floor platform. Ravindra was not there yet. He was somewhere below me on the south face, doing the same thing he does every morning before he goes up. He checks his own straps against the anchor points on the lower platforms first. I had maybe 10 minutes. The fourth floor north platform is L-shaped, wrapping the corner of the building. The south rail of it, the one mentioned in the document, runs along the inner side, effacing the wall of the building, where you'd be standing if you were adjusting a tie-off bolt at chest height. The outer plank, the one the document said was not secured, would be the plank running parallel to the rail, the one a man would step backward onto if he took a step away from the wall. I went and stood at the south rail. I looked at the plank. The plank was secured. I could see the 2 galvanized brackets at either end, the bolts through them, the rubber washer under each bolt. I bent down, and I pushed the plank with the flat of my hand. It didn't move. I tried to lift the end of it. The bolt held. I took my helmet off, and I crouched, and I looked at the underside of the plank, and I could see the bracket attachments from below, both bolted through, both intact. The plank was fine. I stood up. I felt, and this is the part you have to understand, I felt the small, mean satisfaction of someone who has just proved a piece of paper wrong. I thought, the document is wrong. I thought, maybe it's a joke. Maybe one of the lads on the night shift left it as a joke, and the date typo is a coincidence. Maybe Ravindra's name was typed into a draft form ages ago for a different reason, and the form ended up wedged behind the cement bags, and the form is wrong about everything. I thought all of this in about 3 seconds. Then I heard Ravindra come up the ladder onto the 4th floor platform behind me. I turned. He saw me. He looked surprised. He had not expected to find me there. He came toward me along the platform, his harness clipped on, his straps in his hand, the morning light on his face, and he smiled the lunchtime smile on the tired, polite one, and he said, "You, again." I said, "The plank's fine, Ravindra." I checked. "I'm sorry. And I want you to know that I did this next part on purpose, because the whole reason I had come up was to put my body between him and the spot where the document said he would die." I stepped sideways, off the position by the south rail, to make space for him to come past me to his work area, and as I stepped sideways, I stepped onto the outer plank. The plank I had just verified was fine. The plank gave under me. It didn't break. It tipped. The bolt at the inner end of the plank, the one I had pushed and held a minute ago, the one I had seen with my own eyes pass through the bracket, that bolt was not in the bracket. The bracket was in the plank, sticking up from the wood, the bolt hole empty. Although the plank rotated under my left foot, the way a seesaw rotates, and my weight went to the outer edge, and the outer edge dropped, and I dropped with it. I fell, and I want to be specific about this. I fell to my left and forward, off the outer edge of the platform, toward the void. Ravindra caught me. He caught the strap of my harness. My harness, because every man on the platform was harnessed, at the chest, and he pulled, and his own straps, which he had not yet clipped into the anchor point because he had been walking toward his work area, took my weight through his arms and his shoulders and the friction of his boots on the plank he was standing on, which was the inner plank, the secured one, and he leaned back against the rail with my body half over the edge, and he shouted in Bengali, twice, very loudly. Un and Imran came up the ladder, and the two of them between them got me back onto the platform, and I lay on the platform on my back, with the sky above me white with heat, and the metal of the scaffold cool against my shoulder blades, and I was alive, and I had not died. And Ravindra was crouching over me saying, in English, "Brother, brother, brother." And Imran was on the radio to Mr. Pereira, and I could hear very faintly the diesel generator down in the lower yard, and the scaffold talking to itself the way it does. Mr. Pereira came up. He took one look at the plank, the loose one, the one I'd fallen on, the one I had inspected with my own hands, and he saw the empty bracket, and he saw the bolt was missing, and he started shouting at Imran in Sinhala, and then in Tamil at a man I couldn't see at the bottom of the scaffold, and then in English at me. "What were you doing up here? You don't have business on the 4th floor. Who told you to be up here?" And I lay on the platform, and I let him shout. He told Ravindra and Imran to come down with me. He said the platform was closed until the bracket was checked. He said it loud enough that the men 2 floors down stopped working to listen. I went down the scaffold with Ravindra's hand on the back of my belt, the way you walk an old man down a step. At the bottom, by the cement bags, Mr. Pereira turned to me and he said, in Sinhala, in the voice he uses when he's actually worried and not just angry, "Are you hurt?" I said no. He said, "Sit down. Drink water." I sat down on a pallet. Imran brought me a bottle. Ravindra sat down next to me, not on the pallet, on the gravel, his harness still on, and he'd looked at me for a long time without saying anything. Then he said, in English, "How did you know?" I didn't answer. He said, "About the plank. How did you know?" I said, "I don't know." He nodded the way you nod at something you've decided not to ask about. He said, "Thank you." He said it with the formality of a man who knew exactly what had just happened to him and was choosing, for his own reasons, not to push on it. I looked at my watch. It was 11:47. I want you to understand the cold of that. I want you to understand what it felt like to look at the watch, the digital Casio, and see those 4 numbers, and understand that the document had been correct about the time, and correct about the platform, and correct about the plank, and correct about the death, but wrong about which one of us it was. Oh, I sat on the pallet, and I drank the water, and I felt the cold thing in the back of my neck go down between my shoulder blades and into my hands, and I sat there with the bottle in my hands, and I thought, very slowly, Ravindra was standing where I was supposed to be standing. I was standing where he was supposed to be standing. The document had us the wrong way round. And then, slowly, after a longer time, or the document did not have us the wrong way round, and the document was always about me, and I read it as being about him, because I needed it to be about him, and the line about the boot, the line about my boot, was the only line that ever named me, and I read past it, and the witness in the document was always going to be Ravindra, and the dead man in the document was always going to be me. Yeah, and I have been reading the document inside out for 4 hours. I want to sit in this for a second with you. I want to sit in the fact that I read a document 4 times, very carefully, with all my attention, and I read past my own death, because the name in the box at the top was a man I knew, and the word witness was attached to my ID, and the language of the document was the language of someone who had survived to write it down. I want to sit in the fact that the document was honest. The document was not predicting anything. The document was describing past tense, and I had read it as future because I was the one reading it, and I am alive to be reading it, and a man who is alive cannot read a description of his own death as a description of his own death. His mind will not let him. On his mind will turn the names around in the boxes until the dead man is somebody else. I sat on the pallet for a long time. After a while, Mr. Pereira came back. He said the bracket bolts on the south plank were missing on both ends. He said somebody had taken them out. He said it was sabotage, and he was going to find out who, and he was angry the way a foreman is angry when he is going to have to write to the company in Dubai and explain why the police were on his site. He said the platform was closed. He said I should go home for the day. He said it was the second time this month somebody had nearly died on this job, and he was sick of it. I said, second time? He said, last month, the lift shaft. The boy who fell into the lift shaft. You weren't there. It was before you started. He waved his hand. Different problem. On same kind of stupid. I sat with the bottle in my hand. He said, go home. I went home. I cycled back to Wellawat. I went up the 3 flights of stairs to my room. I sat on my bed for an hour without taking my boots off. The strip of inner tube was still wedged in the welt of the left one, and the sole was still partly separated, and I sat and I looked at it, and I thought about the line in the document that had mentioned it. I want to tell you what I did at the end of that hour, because it is the only thing I did all day that was entirely my own. I took the clipboard out of my bag. I had brought it home. Of course I had brought it home. I had not let it out of my sight since the lower yard. And I read the document one more time, slowly, carefully. I read it as if I had never seen it before. I read it from the box at the top. Yeah, where the date was wrong, down through the names and the IDs, into the narrative, all the way to the last line about my boot. The narrative said, at approximately 11:47 hours, worker Ravindra Kumar fell from the north scaffold platform at 4th floor level. The fall was witnessed by worker D. Sinanayake. That is what it said. That is what it had always said. The dead man in the document was Ravindra. The witness was me. I had been reading it correctly the whole time. The document had been wrong. I want you to understand this, and I want you to sit with it, because I have had a year to sit with it, and it still does what it did the first time. The document had been wrong. The document had described an event that did not happen. The document had told me what was going to happen, and I had gone and done something different. When the something different had been the saving of a man's life, and the document had been wrong. And I was holding it in my hands at 6 o'clock on a Tuesday evening in my room in Wellawat, and the document was incorrect about a real event in the past tense, and the past tense it was incorrect about was 4 hours ago. I sat with it. I held it. I read the date again. I read Ravindra's ID. I read my own. I read the time. I read the boot line. I went to the small cupboard above my sink, and I took out the box of matches I keep for the gas ring. And I went into the bathroom, and I put the document in the metal bucket I used to wash clothes, and I burned it. The paper went up quickly. The cardboard of the clipboard took longer. I had to break it into pieces and burn it in sections. The metal clip I rinsed and dropped down the gully drain on the back of the building. I washed the ash down the toilet. I scrubbed the bucket. I want to be honest. I felt better. I felt better the way you feel better when you do a thing you have decided to do. The document was gone. The thing that had been wrong about a real event was gone. The day was a day in which I had nearly fallen off a scaffold, and a Bengali tie-off man had saved my life, and the rest of it, the document, the date, the boot line, was something I could choose not to have happened. I slept that night. I went back to work on the Thursday. The fourth-floor platform had been rebolted. The men joked about it. Ravindra and Imran took me out for Kotu that Friday and paid for me. And we did not talk about Tuesday morning, and we have not talked about it since. The job ended in October. The apartments are finished. Other people live in them now. I want to tell you why I am telling you this. I am telling you because 3 weeks ago I started a new job on a different site, a smaller job, a 4-story hotel conversion in Mount Lavinia. I am still a laborer. I am 27 now, not 26. I have new boots. The Casio still works. On Monday of last week, I came in early, the way I do. I went round to the lower yard to find the grease tin, the way I do. I reached behind a stack of cement bags, the way I do. There was nothing there. I want to say that clearly. There was nothing there. I checked. I moved the bags. I felt all along the shelf. There was no clipboard. There was no paper. There was nothing. I came out of the lower yard, and I stood in the sun, and I felt the cold thing in the back of my neck start. And I want to tell you something, because the thing in the back of my neck is what I am writing this for. The cold thing in my neck is not fear that I will find another document. The cold thing is the suspicion that I have been finding them on every site for a year, and that the reason I check behind the cement bags first thing every morning before the briefing, which I do, I have done it on 3 sites now, and I had not noticed I was doing it until Monday, when I stood in the lower yard at Mount Lavinia and realized I had walked there without thinking. The cold thing is the suspicion that the reason I am still alive is that I have been finding the documents and reading them and doing the small wrong thing they need me to do. And on Monday morning at Mount Lavinia, I did not find one, and that means either there isn't one at this site, or there is one and I have not found it, or there was one and somebody else found it first. I went to work. I worked the day. I worked the week. It's Sunday tonight. I am sitting in my room in Wellawat with the fan on, writing this on the back of pages from a job listings magazine because I want it to exist somewhere outside my head. Tomorrow I will go to the site in Mount Lavinia. I will be there at 7:20. I will go to the lower yard. I will check behind the cement bags. I will check the shelf. I will check the breeze block wall. If there is a clipboard, I will read it. If it is about me, I will do whatever it needs me to do, and I will live another day. If it is about another man, I will go and find the man, and I will stand between him and the thing on the page. If there is no clipboard, then it means one of two things, and I do not yet know which, and I do not know how to find out without waiting. I keep thinking about the line Mr. Pereira said. Second time this month, somebody had nearly died on this job. Last month, the lift shaft. The boy who fell into the lift shaft. Different problem? Same kind of stupid. I keep thinking about who found a clipboard behind a stack of cement bags last month. In the same site, in the same lower yard, in the half hour before the morning briefing, and read it, and went and did the small wrong thing the page needed them to do, and saved a boy in the lift shaft, and went home and burned the page. I keep thinking that I never saw that man again, because by the time I started, the lift shaft thing was already over, and the witness, whoever he was, had moved on to another site. I keep thinking that there is, somewhere on a building site in Colombo tonight, another man my age, who came in early on a Monday morning a few months ago and reached behind a stack of cement bags and found a clipboard and read his own ID on it, and the clipboard was right about the time and right about the platform and wrong about which man was the dead one, and he is now on another site. Like me, checking behind cement bags every morning without remembering why, and the cold thing is in the back of his neck too. And he is also not sure whether to be glad or afraid that he didn't find anything today. I keep thinking we should find each other. I keep thinking we should not. I keep thinking that whatever is writing the documents has been writing them all this time. For the men it has decided to keep alive, and that the men it has decided not to keep alive do not find the documents at all. And the line in the document about my boot was not a detail and not a coincidence and not an afterthought. It was the part of the page that was specifically for me. The part that said, I see you, I see your boot, I am writing this to you, and the kindness of it is something I cannot accept and cannot give back and cannot stop receiving. Tomorrow morning, I will check the lower yard. I do not want to check the lower yard. I will check it anyway, because at some point in the last year, my body learned to do this before I knew it was learning. And the part of me that decides where my feet go in the half hour before the morning briefing is no longer entirely me. And I would like to know, I would like very much to know, whether that is something to be afraid of, or something to be grateful for, or whether those have ever been different things. I'm going to put the fan on stronger and go to sleep. The Casio says 11:47. I had not looked at it until just now.